Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Social Newsroom. This one is especially special to me as a recovering church boy and a near-miss man of God, as I like to say. My name is Dan Aseda. This is the Social Newsroom. Today's topic, the good, the bad, and the church. We're talking about where the Kenyan church is. Traditionally, Kenyan church has always been the North Star for the entire society. This is not to say anything about the other religions, but the Christians have always been the loudest, the most obvious leaders of society. But in the recent past, there are some things that are not really making sense. Right now, we have very, very prominent church figures who are facing major sexual harassment allegations. In fact, they have both lost their jobs. One was a teacher, one was a senior pastor at Nairobi Baptist Church. And the other issues that are happening in church is you've got situations happening all over the country. Just a few weeks ago, we have a situation in Mombasa, Kwa Binzaro, which now bodies are showing up because of a Christian pastor. Previously, we've had Shakahola. And then now, even in Western Kenya, there are situations that are happening that are the same. So as we begin this question, I just want to start by first introducing the people here. And joining me first is my pastor, actually, Pastor Pete. Hello.
Lord have mercy. I retired from the pastorship 3 years ago, so just the Reverend Doctor is fine. So because you haven't attended for a while, you need to see me on the side.
So I have been attending, but I now sit in the back of the church.
In the back? Yes. Thank you for inviting me. I'm grateful to be here. Kind of like the hot seat, I suppose, today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, a fellow recovering church goer.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Carol Nganga, founder, team lead, Msingi Trust.
So you do a lot of work already with Christian personalities and Christian people.
Yes.
So maybe I ask you guys both, but I start with you, Carol.
Yes.
So are we still the salt and light of the earth with regards to Kenya?
Mm-hmm. I think so. In my heart of hearts, and I say this not of the institutions, but of the people. There are people out there who I have met. They are not many. They are not many, but they are really committed to doing good. So if I'm looking at the institution, I would say no. But if I'm looking at the body, the people, I will say yes.
And by the people, you mean the church leadership?
No, not church leaders. Like the local mwananchi.
The church goer.
Yes, the church goers and people who are committed to Jesus.
Yeah.
And again, you will hear me saying committed to Jesus, not Christians. Yes.
So we'll come back to that because I want to understand that differentiation there. Pete, for this question, Dr. Reverend Pete.
Yes.
Are we still the salt and light of the earth?
Absolutely. Yeah? Absolutely. I completely 100% believe that. But I want to get into some definition. And first of all, I want to disagree with Carol in that there are few, there are many. The ones who are for us are more than those who are against us. This is the reality that's on the ground. I've been traveling around Kenya, going to Nyeri, Narok. We're doing several things with various pastors in different places. Most pastors are very simple people. Most of them, the majority of church leaders are untrained. They're lay leaders, if you come from the Anglican background. So they didn't receive any formal training, but wamejitolea so that they could lead the people of God. So I feel this is a plus and a minus because in some ways, we were not set up for what is currently the situation we're in today. But I want to go into some definition. You know, if you think about it, what is that thing that we call the church? Is it the body of Christ, the ecclesia, the called out ones that we would like to do? Yeah. So there's that which we understand, because when somebody says the church, there's those people who I think Carol was referring to, most people who claim a following to Jesus. So that's the church. But then there's also the church, which we say is the organization, which is now what you're referring to. As that institution, is that institution the light? That we can debate about. And then there's those who say there's the church, which is I'm going to that church, which is a building. And then there's people who say, I went to church or we had church. So that's 4 or 5 different definitions. And I feel because of that, I must say that the called out ones, the general body of Christ, those who are followers, this is what Carol, I feel, is referring to. That is an incredible, large number of people who are committed to it. We see it all the time. Wherever we go, you go to a government office, you start with prayers, whatever. So this is the truth. Now, the second part of your question is, are we still salt and light? I feel that there's been a denudation, a denuding, that's the right word.
A reduction.
Basically, what we're saying is, and Jesus said it, he said, if the salt loses its saltiness, it is no good but except to be thrown out and to be trampled by men. So now we're in the trampled by men zone. Because if it loses its saltiness, then we're trampled by men. You have people who are calling out the church in various different aspects. And I think that that's the space that we're in today. And I feel that if we want to give comparisons, I was alive and old enough to remember Bishop Alexander Muge, and I think I've said this on this platform before, the Reverend who baptized me, Reverend Mutava Musimi. You had Reverend Njoya, and these people who are stalwarts, who were, when you wanted some kind of impeccable character, or if you wanted somebody who was incorruptible, if you wanted somebody who was like that, those are the characters that you would point at. Your local pastor, your local bishop was like that. And I feel that because of visibility, because of what we've seen with media and how our culture has really eroded some of these cultural and moral norms. What we're beginning to see is people who call themselves men of God, but are wolves in sheep's clothing, which the Apostle Paul warned us about. And I think this is the reason we're here.
But there's no out, because we cannot totally separate the institution of the church and the people that are in church. And right now we have to face it.
Well,
there's mass graves
yes.
that are being found. That's a factual thing. We've got cult tragedies, Shakahola, financial scandals of all types that are happening, not even at like massive institutions. In fact, the big institutions are better at finance management than the small ones. And then there's the politics. So we just have got many politicians on the pulpit. And of course, as Budisa has very well written here, the cracks can no longer be hidden. And so when you think about all of these things, one of the biggest things that we must recognize and accept is that trust has really been shaken. So you've said
trust has been broken.
That salt losing its saltiness. And so then we've got these tough questions that we have to ask ourselves.
We must answer.
So when you think about trust and leadership especially, because that's the thing that for me concerns me the most. That the position of the Kenyan Christian Church was one of leadership. It was always one of, talk about Njoya, Gitari, all these stalwarts. Where are we today?
So one of the things that I had to, or we have to remember, is that even these stalwarts that we are talking about, they did it at their personal capacity. It was never the congregation. It was never the Anglican Church has said, or the Catholic Church, or all of that. So like Reverend Timothy Njoya was defrocked so many times by the body, but he himself, and then now, of course, the celebrity. After
you kill your prophets.
Yes, after that. So we need to remember that most of these guys stood at great personal cost.
Yes.
That's the first thing. The second thing, and I really love what the Occupy Churches movement did, and it reminded me that there is a trust that Kenyans still have in the church, because I feel what Kenyans did with Occupy Churches was like, wait, remember who you are. That politicians do not have the final say on your pulpits. Politicians that is not the role of the church. Sometimes I feel that the politics are, of course, as a church and religion, church and state, one bedfellow. Yeah.
But are you suggesting, therefore,
yes,
that over time,
yes,
leadership of churches has been unable to protect the church from infiltration by the politicians? Is that
I think there's an inevitability.
Yes.
To be honest, there's an inevitability because of our culture. If you think about how our culture was, we had a culture 2, 3 regimes ago when the former and late President Moi would entertain these bishops and pastors at his house. There was a certain cadre of pastors, bishops who would come and visit him.
Yes.
And then there was the enjoyers who would not visit him.
Yes.
And what Carol is saying is absolutely true, because then you had, at great personal cost, Alexander Mugi his own life, if you think about it. So to me, there's an erosion that has happened of what we used to be. Now, it used to be that in order for you to, I didn't wear my collar today, but in order for you to wear this collar, there was a certain kind of person that you needed to be, some kind of something that you needed to be held up to.
Yes.
And in a way, what has happened is a good thing. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it is good that somebody or people have died or suffered. Don't get me wrong on that. That is terrible. But what has happened is that it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call so that, because it says to me, like Carol is saying, that we intuitively know who we are supposed to be, but we're not that person.
Okay.
We're not being that person. So this is a call to us. And I want to press that a little further. If you look at 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7. Please forgive me for putting the scriptures in your podcast.
But just know we also know them.
Yes. 4:17. No. This is, what does it say? It says, "For judgment must begin in the house of God."
Yeah.
And if it begin there, then what would happen with the ungodly and the sinner? So the house of God must first be held to a high standard. I feel that maybe we're going through some kind of judgment period now, when the Lord is looking and saying, okay, listen, we got to call you out. Bro, this is just not acceptable, because it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't. I mean, Shakahola is not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And the rest of the stuff that is coming. Because now with people that, I grew up in the Nairobi Baptist Church.
Yeah.
That stuff is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. But I want to say, we are where we are. And I think you've said something very important. And that's this. One of the solutions, and I was going to leave it until later. You'd ask, what are the solutions? We start with the solutions. This is leadership.
Yeah.
That we must take leadership in the direction that the church is going, in what is constituted as sound doctrine, and so on. But then now we have rogues who say, "And what will you do me? Utanifanyia nini?" And they're on air, and you can't. They're incorrigible. And so then what do we do with that? Because then I also have a solution for that.
Yeah.
We'll come to that because it's a bit harsh. I feel we've embraced something that to me is ugly, and lowered the bar for the qualification. And I feel there's a reason for it that is both cultural as well as spiritual.
What's your response to that?
And political as well. We are currently going through a book, and allow me to read like a paragraph about, it's called Nonviolent Atonement.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're looking at the place where Constantine became a Christian.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of it, co-opted this very fringe religion into, it's a fringe religion that was like of the outcasts, and then said, there's a thing about this religion that I want to tap into.
Yeah.
And so, and I think we need to ask, that's something we need to talk about. What is it about this religion that is so easily co-opted by power? So allow me to read.
Mm-hmm.
Being Christian, the book is called Nonviolent Atonement by J. Denny Weaver. Being Christian meant to live the life modeled by Jesus, the head or Lord of our church. On the other hand, The emperor symbolized the empire. Once Christianity became the religion of empire and of the social order, and the continuation of Christianity was linked to the success of the empire, preservation of empire or the institution of the social order became the decisive criterion for ethical behavior, and the emperor or ruler became the norm against which the righteousness of a behavior, such as killing or truth-telling, was judged. In other words, the appropriateness of the behavior of the Christian emperor, the leader of the civil order that protected the Christian church, was judged not with reference to Jesus' teaching and example, but by how it furthered the cause of the empire or governing structure which protected the church. As a result of the shift in view from Jesus to the emperor, there was a marked change in the ethical orientation of the church.
Right.
That's so. This is
Umesema.
This is 300
years ago.
No, AD. So it is. We are working with conditions of the emperor and the state, and then co-opting, and then we are saying we are following what the emperor is doing, the way of Jesus versus the way of emperor. So I think we need to be honest and confront the fact that for majority of people, the Christianity is not about the way of Jesus, but the way of the empire, the way of who's in power and how to protect and amass power, which is in its very essence very anti-Jesus.
Yeah, but also it's also a cop-out a little bit, because we are saying that the problems in church are therefore coming from the political power and their influence.
We can't deny it. We can't deny it.
I mean, but it's a part of life.
Okay, so let me
can't be the whole story.
Let me structure it like this: Babylon system come in the church. So no, let's be honest. Revelations again 17. You get 17 and 18. Jesus is now commanding the church to come out of Babylon. It says, "Come out of Babylon." So Babylon, and I know it sounds like a joke, but the system that runs Babylon is now running much of the church. So the whole idea. Let me throw it a little further.
But I have a question.
Yes,
because I think it's easy to say the system is running the other system.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing to say.
Yep.
Are you saying that they're appointing church leaders?
Listen, in order to have a legal church organization in Kenya, Babylon system must put a tick. So I can't have a church. I couldn't have a church without the government's approval. We have freedom of religion, but a religious organization had to be registered under the Societies Act.
Yeah, but that in itself is not new.
No. This is what I'm saying. Yeah. But that's the whole thing that I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where in the scriptures is that written? That I must be accepted by the government. So my point is that, can I even go a little further?
Yeah.
Many of our churches then are facing west and saying, if you don't have a church that looks like a certain way, it has to have a certain amount of lights and smoke and whatever, and a certain kind of theology that leans towards this kind of advancement. And we talk about prosperity, we talk about whatever it is. That stuff, that whole ideology of what was the atonement? You don't hear atonement. Where's that in sermons anymore?
No.
You
don't even hear that. One of the things, Pete, that I find fascinating about churches is that you don't hear much about Jesus.
Yeah.
Sermon on the Mount. So let's go.
Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 25 about the kingdom, about those things that actually talk about how to live.
Yeah.
We talk a lot. I actually say that the church is more Pauline than it is Jesus.
Yeah, but again, I want to ask the question in more specifics.
Yes.
Because, and maybe let me give a little bit of background. What everybody feels about church is that whenever there's an accusation against church, you do two things. You make it a much bigger existential crisis instead of just saying that, hey, that was wrong.
Yeah.
We create this much larger issue. And then secondly, we protect everybody involved.
Okay,
So
let me allow
there's a whole
that's short. That's I know you're facing that way, but that's short. So let me.
So in this situation, to ask it in this way, what is the matter with church? The answer cannot be the government.
No.
We've
for
got
sure.
to,
No. Okay, so let me allow me to finish my idea.
Yeah.
And my idea is this. If you remember 2016, between 2014 to middle of COVID there, we had a movement called Me Too.
Yes.
And Me Too was mainly American, but, Western idea of a certain kind of leader who tended to be a certain type of way.
Yes.
And that leader abused his power.
Yes.
Because he was the top of a capitalist system that demanded that a person who at the top of that be narcissistic, be materialist, narcissist, sociopath, or even psychopath.
Yeah.
And the people who came into that space, you heard the Weinsteins, you had the so on. But there was a certain type of person who headed those organizations.
Yeah.
The reason I was talking about Babylon is that's the system that runs the capitalist system. And then somewhere along the way, we looked at the world and we said, these organizations run their organizations well. Let us bring that system and run our churches like these organizations, because it'll give us more. So we have executive pastors and we have all these things that are systems of the world. This is not a pattern. When the Lord was asking Moses to build the tabernacle, he said, build after what I have shown you. You design You do that thing. Otherwise, that thing is a mongrel. And every time we go outside, this is what I'm saying. We have imported, because we say best practice.
Yeah.
We say this is best practice. This is what will have more efficiency. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be efficient, that we shouldn't be accountable and so on. But I'm saying that in borrowing these things, we borrowed a system that does not enhance, that does not bring out, that will necessitate a narcissist, materialist, psychopath or sociopath at the top. And so you have these pyramids, these various pyramids that are being run in different places. And when we look at so-and-so pyramid on TBN or whatever channel that we look at, we say, I want my church to be like that. But that guy has brought these CEOs and whatever, business school mathematics inside and so what you have now is an organization that's being run like a business, like a private equity firm.
Yeah.
And for that, bottom line is important. So to me, this is part of the problem. The problem isn't when you say we make it bigger. I say, but if I don't understand malaria, I will be saying, you are shaking. What's the problem? He says, we're shaking because there's a pathogen in your system. The pathogen in the system is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm not making the problem bigger. I'm trying to understand it and say that the vast majority of churches looking at saying, I want my church to look like this. I want it to be like so-and-so Lakeside Church. I'm saying Lakeside, whatever it is that you want to do. And it has to be like this with 16 worship teams.
And they are also facing quite a bit of pushback from their societies, right?
Let's now go back.
Yeah.
So then, Dan, look at this. When you had Harvey Weinstein and so on and so forth, and Bill Cosby, whatever, what did you then have as a parallel? You had Ted Hazard.
Yes.
You had
Church too.
You had Eddie Long. You had all of this going on because it mirrored what was going on. We have the same problems because we have the same system.
Yeah.
So until we remove ourselves from that system, and the problem is that our system is a pyramid, when that's not how Jesus said. Jesus is our head, and then there's a lot more flatness here. And the whole idea of this, how we see church, is a problem. Now, having said that, let me come to now. So this has happened. Now, we want to say the things that are happening are not just individual. Because if it was some individual somewhere in, Shakahola, and then everybody says, you, Kwani, what's wrong with you? But when you look across the board, that you see this malady that's like a plague that's running all over, you think it's just a Kenya problem. It isn't. This is happening in Malawi. It's happening in South Africa.
Yeah.
Because we've imported a kind of system that now says no accountability, low bar for entry, and just let's have this pyramid with the man of God at the top. And if the man of God messes, then you say, touch not mine anointed, which is misquoting the scripture. So,
which
because
is exactly what happens.
Who is he accountable to? Who is he accountable to?
I want to jump in here and say that churches are people's personal businesses. Especially some of these ones.
Yeah.
And I make fun of some of these spaces and say, in kiosk you. And Nganga has, Bishop Nganga, I love him to bits, not because we share a name, but because I find that he is honest about what he's running. He says, this is my show. This is my show. You come correct.
Yeah.
Yeah? That's what he says. Most of this, the English ones that you and I are part of
knows.
Yes, are the same. They are run the same. And so all the abuse that you see on Nganga's pulpit happens on these other ones, maybe in boardrooms, but we don't get to see them. The other aspect of this conversation that I need to say is that we are who we are.
Yeah.
And we have to accept that whether you're in church on Sunday, whatever it is you're doing from Monday to Saturday is a reflection of who you are. And so bad manners comes on Sunday. It is, we forget about it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
For 2 hours, and then uangalie watu wakitoka kwa parking.
Even the driving outside the church is atrocious.
It's atrocious.
Yeah.
Today, I was coming here, there was traffic. And then you expect these people with big cars, they are better behaved. No. Horrible. And so there's a thing about who we are as people.
Who we have become.
That translates to every aspect of our humanity.
Yeah.
And then what happens in church is that we present the desired ideal of who we should be.
Yeah.
So we will come and Dan, I will tell you I am nini, but on Monday, because the people who are making these policies that are killing us are still Christians. Yeah. The people who are stealing, if we are 80% Christian and Kenya is as corrupt as it is, then it means who are the majority of the corrupt people? It is us.
Yeah.
And so we need to ask ourselves, I think as a nation, even like what is our core value as a people? Because I feel we do not have that.
Yeah.
And so even someone practicing African traditional religion is able to separate their faith, their practice, because most of our religions are about serving people, being good to nature, all of that. But we practice it. It does not translate from Monday. The Sunday does not translate to Monday.
Yeah.
And there's something I find fundamentally wrong around what it is and who it is we have become, as you're suggesting, or maybe even who we were formed as at the initial forming of this Kenyan experiment, what it is about the
performative piety is what I call it.
Yes. There is a thing about why are we opening meetings with prayer? Government meetings.
Performative piety.
And then at the end of it, the policies you make are for killing people.
But okay, so I hear you.
Yes.
And I understand the colonial legacy of Kenya. We are still recovering colonial people.
We are a perfect colonial experiment.
Yeah, and there are things we're still recovering from. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
But we still have to ask the question in this way, because being an ex-colonial state is also not new to us, right?
Yes,
We've been an ex-colonial state quite a long time. But just early in this conversation, we were talking about people who stood up and were interested in remaining as we are going to protect the church from this thing. And I'm not saying that they were perfect people, but they were trying to pull everybody to a certain standard of this thing. So where has the shortage come from?
Maybe.
Were those the only ones who were ever going to make?
Maybe now people are like, there's nothing to protect here. Let it all burn.
Hang on a second. I want to say, no. I want to say, no. That's not what it is. somebody asked me once, so where are you? We don't hear you anymore.
Yeah.
I said, well, when you used to hear me, there was only one station. I used to be a famous musician one day. Yeah. Like you, I was a famous musician. So, and when there was only KTN and KBC, and we were showing up on Jimmy Gathu's shows, then you could see me because that's all we could watch.
Yeah.
But now you have, I don't know how many hundred stations that are broadcasting 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then everybody has their own personal channel that they're broadcasting on their Instagram, on their TikTok, on whatever, just saying whatever they want. So there's an overwhelm of information.
Yeah.
So in this flood of information, we're missing some of the gems that we have in our communities. And it's so much easier to see. I went for a thing in Ahero. And I found this guy, just a regular country preacher, preaching in the Luo. What an incredible preacher. I've not heard, this quality of preaching, to me, I said, this is amazing. I forget his name now. Michael, I think Michael of Diambo was his name. Incredible guy. And I said, but you look at him, he's a simple guy. Doing this shenanigans that we see, to me. So I don't know him well. So I'm just saying that now, not to. What I'm saying is, there's people who are hidden. Elijah was there saying, "Oh, I want to die because now Jezebel." And the Lord said, "Hey, by the way, there are 7,000 who have not, 5,000 who have not bowed their knee to Baal. There are those who have not bowed their knee." I want us to move away from catastrophizing and then painting everybody with the same tar brush that we want to, because it's easy. It's easy to say the church, all they want is money.
Sawa.
Yeah.
But earlier we said that majority, she said some people are still for the church and are interested in. You said no, it's majority of the people.
A lot of people.
Okay, so then where are the voices? Where are the voices?
I don't know, Dan, to be honest with you.
Let me ask this other layer. Because when there's harm that's happening to somebody, Bapo.
Yes.
Yeah, harm has happened to people.
Yes.
Christine Mungai's excellent story about Alliance High School. Where is the people and the church speaking out against that? Because we all know it is wrong.
Yes.
And if there's a majority of people who still believe and are still thinking about being the salt and the light.
So allow me to say, I'm here saying it is wrong.
But where are there more? Why
does there have to be more? But this is my question.
Just said people are hidden.
But no, here's my question. It doesn't have to be a majority. Because then you say in Saudi Arabia, wrong is wrong. Whether you have 50,000 people or 5 people, wrong is wrong. It's wrong.
No problem.
Yes.
I'm asking for the 100 that are there.
Yes.
Why don't we hear them?
I think majority, and if you look at what Christine Mungai wrote and the story that came out, especially around Nairobi Baptist, one of the things that we have to reconcile is that the calling of wrong is different when you're a leader versus when you're a congregant.
Yeah.
Yes? The Bible tells us, as teachers, yes?
Be judged more harshly?
Yes, we'll be judged more harshly by God. But in practice, I have sat around people confessing in a staff meeting that they slept with one another. Church discipline. Yeah? But when someone, the case of molestation of young boys and what happened there's a thing to protect this man of God.
Yeah.
This, you are caught, unapigwa na butwa, you are like, even him.
Yeah.
It's like you've not been there. I think we have put religious leaders on pedestals.
Absolutely.
That they shouldn't be on.
Yeah.
That's one. And then the second thing is that as leaders, and I consider myself a leader in this space, is that if I enjoy the gifts and the perks of this office, when hands are pointed at me, my friends should not come and protect me. Because one of the saddest things that I saw, especially around the Baptist story, was me. I told my pastor friends, if you mess up, I will say you are my friend, but you have done wrong.
Yeah.
And talk and protect the people who are listening to this story, because then, and also who are affected. So I think we still carry the touch not the anointed too strongly.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. I also think we don't know what to do with
correct.
Yes, with when people have done mass harm, because we feel it's a reflection of the church. And we have to accept that this is a broken body. And this is, for me, the beauty of what Jesus did is that this is my body broken for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if we are a broken body, then why don't we deal with our mess and say openly, this is it? Because the pursuit of perfection allows us and gives us permission to hide things under the carpet.
Yeah.
And that carpet is stinky and it's dirty.
Yeah.
And there is a time the stink, it will no longer hold.
Yeah.
It is not holding right now and then right now people are not afraid to call things out.
Yeah.
And they will call us out. And what do we do when we are called out? We don't protect ourselves. We say, yeah, we did it. We messed up.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point you make, because there's this dual idea of people wanting to hold themselves to a higher standard, but then the manifestation of that is that we hide the bad things that are happening instead of striving to be better. So I guess I want to hear your thoughts about how come then, if society is changing so rapidly, right? Society where the church exists, and there's more interest and there's more openness, and people are, like you're saying, willing to call each other out. Why does it seem like church leadership or church, especially church leadership and the structures around formal churches are not keeping up with that? Like, in your opinion, why is that not being kept up with?
Because we still, in the sense, are afraid of the spiritual still.
Yeah. What do you mean?
So we like Monday to Friday nitazua. Lakini
on Sunday will be different.
Yes. So there's a fear that people have, and also I've experienced this even with activists, where they are active. Some of us are activists Monday to Friday to Saturday. Sunday ninaenda church. You don't bring your activism there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is still this thing about touch holding, because of you're afraid of touch not my anointed. There's a lot of our understanding of our theology, and also we have not been able to ask aloud questions around the faith as well.
Yeah.
And so when you're seen as someone who's questioning, you are seen to be, one of the most important things that one of my pastors did for me is, after staying for 2 years, 3 years somewhere, he called me out and told me, Carol, you're no longer asking questions. You used to be very, very inquisitive. There's something about you that has changed, that you're no longer asking the right questions. And so I think sometimes you enter into a system, into a way of being, and then okay, this is my senior pastor, this is this one, this is the worship leader, give honor where honor is due. There's a lot of silencing around privilege and who can ask what. Guys, I can't go to pastor's office like this. Pastor is... So
without
there's all of that.
Yeah.
And
there's
so
culture around it.
Yes. And there's honor mommy and daddy. So when you call someone mommy and daddy, and in Africa, we know we respect our elders.
I love it. I love it.
We have, and the theology and asking questions. Small groups are not places for curiosity.
Yeah.
They are places where we go to pretend that everything is okay. We do not know that you were chased from work. We don't know you've not paid rent. We don't actually know the matters of life of each other. And so we are just not honest with who we are and what we can be.
I don't know if I can take that a little further.
Yeah.
I have an interesting perspective on that, I think. I was thinking about it as I was praying to come here. The leadership, the majority, and because I've traveled around the country, I begin to see this. The majority of the leadership of the church organizations or churches right now in this country are Gen X and tukijaribu sana millennials.
Yeah.
And so the policymakers, gatekeepers, whatever you want to call them, are Gen X and tukijaribu sana millennials. But the majority of the congregation now are postmodernists, Gen Zs.
Yeah.
Who are in the majority. And so please remember, Gen Z, postmodernism has a more or less flat, what's the word? Hierarchy. There's this hierarchy is there's my truth. Regardless of what it is, I can be a complete fool and you can be a complete wise, but our truths now become equal in postmodernism.
Yeah.
That's how the young people have grown up, which is why they can ask these questions. But the leadership is Gen X, and Gen X we grew up with kuna heshima.
Yes.
Nikimwita mom, nikimwita dad, it's not because, and I found this out, in fact, I was less judgmental when I got a little bit into one of my friends who had the big mom and dad culture in their church.
Yeah.
And when I got inside, because he passed on, you all know Bishop Allen. But when I got there and I listened to the stories, some of the people who were coming, their own parents had rejected them. This person became their mom and their dad. Now, this is an anomaly. The culture of this is open, of course, to abuse.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that if you've come from Gen X, you're more willing to accept mom and dad culture. If you're coming from Gen Z, especially if you're in Kenya, because my friend, if you're in Africa, Kenya is at the zenith of protests. Kenya is, people say, hey, you people are so blessed to be Kenyans. In fact, I've heard people saying, wa Kenya. Tanzanians say, wa Kenya. Who's just now? Yeah, what did that guy say that? To graduate high school, ya Kenya. High school, ya Kenya, ni kama university, ya Tanzania. So I want to say, I think this has something to do with it, that we're in the middle of a cultural inflection that is affecting the church, and the leadership is going to be replaced. That's without a doubt. Some of the bishops and senior pastors that you're seeing are now in their 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And so those pulpits are going to be replaced.
Will the culture change though?
The culture has to change, because the reality is, even though I'm hopeful, let me just say, I'm hopeful that it will change, because again, it's very ugly that culture unfortunately sits and outlives, for generations, culture can outlive even the presence of colonials. So this colonial attitude, I know we like to wish it away, but that colonial attitude where we're sitting right now, if you lived at that time in Nairobi, in colonial times, you couldn't be here if you were my color, my skin color. You couldn't be here unless you're a worker, because you needed that pass. My thing is, there's some things that change with time. There's some things that are revolutionary and they change. I wrote about it in my first book, some things that change immediately because the force of the revolution is much. I want to be hopeful, Dan. I want to be hopeful without walking all over the suffering of those people who are at the receiving end of the culture that we're now seeing that is in church. This culture is not biblical. You don't see it in the New Testament. In fact, I go as far as to say, if you read Matthew carefully, he says, do not call anyone father. Yeah, you said you know the scriptures. I said, yeah, this is what the Bible says. So we need to be careful. Of course, there was a culture then, if you study it, of now being called, we want to be called rabbi, we want to be called senior father, we want to be called all that. But it's the same thing, isn't it? So that we can be seen to be lording it over a certain group of people. So I think that nexus of where culture crosses over with truth and the stuff that makes us truly believers and seeking after the heart of Jesus, that's the thing that we need to constantly be at that place where we say, I want to be following after Jesus, but acknowledging that there's a culture there that says there's some things that have to change. As far as 30 years ago, when I was on the receiving end of this culture, I was not the senior pastor at the time, even the retired senior pastor. People with hair stood like yours were, I couldn't do this.
Never.
We were called devil worshippers, the earring, we were called, I don't know, all sorts of things that we weren't. But this was an expression of a new coming culture. So I want to say that that's an important acknowledgement.
So let me put you on the spot. Oh, so sorry. Go ahead.
I think as I'm listening to you, Pete, I'm thinking about fear and the thing about protecting God and protecting Christianity. And I feel like a lot of these things that people do.
Yeah, we have a fragile Christianity.
Yes, it is one where people just, have to it's like, really.
God is not that fragile.
Yeah.
I want to say, that he's not that fragile.
That is a way where I feel like we are like, oh my gosh, if you don't do this, this won't happen. It's like, don't do this, this won't happen. And so I'm like, there's a fear, and also there's a thing about control. And all of them stem from one thing, but I
fear,
long for us to openly, lovingly do the one command that Jesus left us with is love God with all of our hearts and love of neighbor. And that principle of love that is so lost on us in the sense of that we just love the like-minded, the people who look like us, the people who talk like us. And then we now all have to wear the same uniform so that then we can see each other.
And we have to sound the same.
Yes, we sound the same. I'm like, there's no difference between you. And so I'm thinking that there's a thing about fear and a thing about control of narrative. And also because sometimes there's a fear of thinking God is always over here, ready to beat us up. Because I think we've not also understood that God is a loving father. God is a loving mother. God is a loving parent. And so if we see this as a family, then our way of doing life within the church and in community will be very different.
Yes. So I disagree with this thing of family, though, because I think family is family.
Yes, but I understand that because family has been abused in church settings.
Exactly.
When we come from that, because you are told
he was
your
not
family,
called.
and then you get fired by the same your mother. It happened to me. If we are family, then you're like,
treating me so badly.
Yes,
how my family.
Yes, so but it's the concept of like that bond of love that is shared across kin.
So this is that's why I called it performative piety, where we've come to understand that if I behave a certain way, then I'll be loved.
Yes.
That is not what we see in the scriptures, because that completely negates the whole idea of grace. Jesus, the Bible says, while we were yet sinners, he died for us. He wasn't waiting for me to be good. So there's nothing I can do to earn what it is that he's already given me. My position in him is secure, not because I'm Reverend Dr. Pete Odera.
Yes.
I am secure in him because Pete said yes to Jesus. This is what's important. Now,
the question is, you said yes to Jesus, but then you've done some really terrible things.
So then I must be held accountable.
Yes, and so that's the question that I guess is around.
So ask the question.
Yeah, and I want to put you guys a little bit on the spot. So my other pastor, Reverend Edward Ondachi, made a post on Facebook that Carol reminded me about. And he said, what was the hurry about all these decisions? That, and I'd like, by the way, to reach out to him and have him join us. What was the hurry about these decisions that were being taken at? He was talking about Nairobi Baptist Church, in which they were letting go of their senior pastor. But this is actually that idea that in that moment of a person who's been entrusted to lead the church, and something has happened and gone down that doesn't meet the standard that is required of him. If you put those two ideas of security in Christ and position, but the need for there to be accountability.
Yeah. The New Testament is, I think I've struggled with a lot is the independence of the believer. I have my church. Carol has her church, and we all have our, but the truth is we are the church. And the truth is, because I am the church and I belong to Jesus, you have the right to hold me to account.
Okay.
You have the right to hold me to account, regardless of my position. Even if I bandika on myself, Pope Peter, you have the right to call me out and say, but Pete, listen, this is out of order.
Yeah.
If you look at 1 Corinthians 5, And this is, in fact, Paul is very vehement about this one. Says, there's a man who is among you who lives even worse than an unbeliever, than a pagan. Lives worse than a pagan. How can you say, remove this person from among you? He goes as far as to say, verse 5 says, hand such an one to Satan, over to Satan, that his body, his flesh may be destroyed, but his soul saved in the day of our Lord. I feel we haven't gotten there yet. So this handing over, this church discipline is very lightly taken these days, so that now if somebody's out of order, I can't hold him to account.
What could we do?
I
in the case of a person as senior, as a senior pastor, what options are there?
Okay, so this is the conundrum that we're in. This is the conundrum that we're in. That we've had this idea that this church, let them do what they must. The reality is we are the church. We as the body of Christ.
But what I'm asking people.
So hold on, I'm going somewhere.
But I wanted to get back.
So, okay, sorry. Maybe we don't have as much time.
No, what I'm I just want you to tell me. Let's say you and I start a church, an imaginary church. And Pastor Carol is senior pastor. And something happens. What do we do?
So I think there's a series of things we can do. So number one, and this is my recommendation, is that we have to take leadership. We have to take leadership in what that discipline requires. So depending on the level of what it is that they have done, this egregious and atrocious things that were happening in the Corinthian church required the intervention of Paul, who was outside of that. But if you understand what I'm saying, he was not present. He said, I may not be present with you, but my spirit is present with you. Treat this person like this. So I feel there's a level of ostracization, that putting out of society, and back to our African culture idea, that if somebody was doing wrong, the society shunned them. And there was an amount of shame that then said, okay, this person has done his penance, he can come back into the society, because they were not designed to be out on their own always. So part of that has to be leadership, with then saying that, listen, you cannot sit in this office anymore, which I feel Nairobi Baptist said, listen, and that's the urgency, to answer my brother Edward Ondachi, the good Reverend Edward Ondachi said, there's an urgency. I can't leave that person in that office with this
situation.
thing. Number one, because this situation is harming others. But at the same time, and I don't want to sound like I'm protecting the institution, but it goes against the institution's values. That the values say that this is out of order. So I feel that that's the thing that needs to be. But here's now, this is where the problem comes in, is that now you started your church, I started my church, she started her church. So we're not accountable to each other. If you look at Acts of the Apostles, they were mutually accountable to each other. So part of the breakdown is that there's no mutual accountability. So this is part of the problem. I'm not sure that there's an easy solution for that, where I can walk up to Apostle whoever and say, hey, bro, listen, this is out of order. You can say, as who? Because this is part of the problem that I'm seeing. As who?
So I don't know how true this story is, but one of my leaders said,
I have a point number 3.
Yes. Oh, sorry. there was that they once tried to go and correct a bishop.
In another church?
Yes.
Okay. At real church?
Yes, at real church.
Okay.
No names mentioned and everything. And he said he looked, he's like, what cars did you come in? Who
As
are
who?
you? Why would you? And then he said that it could be true that your business, that you want to do church in that way. But for me, this is my business. Allow me to run this the way I see. And no one here, I don't owe any of you anything. So that's the one. The second thing on Ondachi's post, and I responded to his post, and I can say this here, is that his problem was not with the things that happened. His problem was that the church...
How they were handled.
No, that they posted a statement.
Yes.
And for me, that was so problematic because you have absolutely no problem. Like, when you see how he has framed
It sounds like he has no problem with the deed. He has a problem with
the posting of the apology. And so one of the ways we have to say is that also I find that even ourselves, we're like, hey, ebu nitete huyu, because maybe kesho ni minta, ndaplikwa.
But that is important.
Yes.
But listen,
yes.
I think what you're saying is important. But sorry, finish your thought before I interrupt you.
Finish my thought, yes. So that, let's say, Dan, if you're my friend, I will say you are my friend and you...
But
umechoma.
Yeah.
And I will say that because now people have seen me and you in photos together.
Yeah.
So I will say, and I'll be honest, because I don't know you fully.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that was a part of you that I did not know. But as a friend of yours, this was wrong.
Yeah.
And then I come to you, because again, public office, public responsibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you have done, and I do not say the church did wrong to post. The church should have posted, did the right
even
thing.
More.
Yes. And so let us take that thing and say, let's not protect this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are carrying it in a fragile way.
Yeah.
I'm like, people are hurt. And the other thing is that there's cultures of secrecy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, these cultures of secrecy and cultures of intimidation that, and then ask ourselves, all these things that were being spoken about took 20 years to come to light, to the fore.
Yeah.
So can we ask ourselves, what is it about our faith systems and our ecosystem that is allowing for predators to be there for 20 years?
Yeah. Without
I think this is the problem. Yeah. No, what you're saying is absolutely right. And this is the thing that I think that I wanted to sort of head at. Again, I'm yet to find a Bible school, I don't know, to me, that has an entire curriculum on dealing with this kind of a thing. Because this thing is, in my view, new in terms of what is brought to light. It's not new in terms of it's happening, as it's maybe as old as the church is. But what can we learn from ancient cultures? What can we learn from other, sorry to sound like I'm now being on both sides, best practice?
Yeah.
What do we do when this happens in our office?
But that's the question I was asking earlier. When there are issues happening in any group of people, is going to be a standard thing. But how come Bar Owners Association or those types of people are finding solutions for these types of things faster than the church?
Because
to Carol's question, 20 years, that's not going to happen at a bar.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking as you were saying this? I was picturing Ananias and Sapphira. Like, I wish that would be the thing that happened.
I was going to go there actually with this. No, hold on.
Like, drop dead, because like, why are you stealing from the people? Because you're being untruthful, and you're breaking the code of who it is we are meant to be as a community. And so you are making it unsafe for the young boys and girls, the people.
I must say this.
Yes.
So I said, number one, take leadership. Number two, develop some kind of mechanism, which is just not there, where now there's accountability across the board. You mentioned Bar Owners Association. There's a code, Bar Owners Association, which unfortunately our churches don't sign up to. There's no one set that says this is the code, even though that's not, again, we get into those murky waters of legislating morals, but we can't legislate the church. But here's
they wouldn't let me into sit-down with my long hair.
Yeah,
how can they let a guy who's treating people in this way?
Correct. You're right. And I'm saying I'm
shocked. That there isn't a rubric. That's what I'm saying.
This is the unfortunate thing, because, and I feel there could be some measure of don't move not the ancient boundaries. If we move this thing, which is why I'm saying some of these things are going to be revolutionary. But listen, I started with 1 Peter 4:17. This judgment is coming, and it's here with us. And these things are being judged, where things are being brought to the light of people who preached water, were brewers of illicit brew. They weren't just drinking wine, they were brewers. So to me, this is where we're at. We must be cognizant that we're talking as though we're in a vacuum, as though God is not listening to this conversation.
Yeah.
It's his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail. And he will judge it. He will judge it. So, and I like to say this, you know, you can escape the board's judgment.
Yeah.
You can escape because you're clever, or you bribe somebody. You can escape even the judgment of the courts, which you've seen some of our senior leaders who have been in egregious error as they went out to do things that were completely illegal.
Yeah.
But then they died suddenly. And we then say, oh, it was an accident. Bro, could the hand of God be behind this judgment? Because then you say, no one can judge me but God. You say, okay, is that what you want? No, I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
5:5, 1 Corinthians 5:5 says, hand such an one over to Satan. And Paul talks about it at least twice in the New Testament. Talks about it, 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 20 says, Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I have handed over to Satan, that they will learn how not to do what? To blaspheme.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying, because what is blasphemy? I'm causing others now to enter into spaces where they're saying, this thing is a scam. This thing that we believe is not a scam. These people are scammers, but this thing that I believe is not a scam. We did not follow cleverly invented tales. Peter says, these are things that we touch. This is the testimony of people who walked with this man. So the reality is we cannot deny that my life has been changed by this invisible being.
Yeah.
However, at the same time, I say that the change in my life needs to then be reflected in my conduct, especially when I'm a leader.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm a leader. So number 3 is, it's time that we hand over some people to Satan. Is that, maybe that's where we just had. And I don't say this lightly. I say because when somebody is unrepentant, Hymenaeus and Alexander style, then we say, listen, this person says, you are telling me as who? You're telling me as who? I say, okay, fine. We hand you over and let the judgment of God be on this person. Let the judgment of God be on this person. And then when we see Ananias and Sapphira, when we see, we're talking as though there's no biblical precedent. Simon the sorcerer came and said to Peter, this power, my goodness, give me this thing. Here's some cash, bro. Here's some cash. Give me this thing. And he says, your money perish with you. We have to come to the place where our pastors are saying, by the way, your money perish with you.
Yeah.
But then now we have, back to our politics, where senior-most politicians can come to your church and at 20 meter and you
don't even ask,
and your voice.
Where is this money
your
coming?
In fact,
voice.
the pastor who said that, hakuna pesa mbaya.
Yes, I remember one of my most a press statements that I can even see them. A press conference that was called, and they said, we will just hatujui hiyo
We'll
pesa
pray over the
inatoka
money.
wapi.
Yeah.
We will come and pray over it.
Yeah, but when we know where the money is coming from, and I say, for me, I say that I think it's important for us because you preserve your power, you preserve your voice when you can't be bought, when you can't be faulted. They said concerning Daniel, they said the only thing you can fault him for is when he has so let's make a rule that'll make him break the rules.
But I think the other thing that, as I was listening to you, Pete, I was thinking, I think there's some atheist pastors.
What?
Yes.
We'll unpack that a little bit.
People who don't believe in the power of God.
Okay.
Because for real, if what I have read and what I have experienced of God is true, and what I believe is true, then there are people who, for sure, there are pastors who are leading us who are atheists.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that as I'm reflecting on this, I'm thinking we are also assuming, there's many assumptions that we're making here, that these people are doing these things in good faith. Yeah. Some of these people are here, and we said we are hoping and trusting that everybody is called and all of that. But there are people to whom what we are saying is really, this one is Torizeno. Yeah? So let's maybe let's
calibrate
remove
to that.
Yes, let's remove the good faith. and talk about
I feel you're right about this, but here's the thing.
So let me add a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
As you consider those
go
thoughts, yeah? Because I think what you're saying is really powerful. And my next question here, that there's a call even in the Bible for Christians to be good citizens.
Yes.
And if I can remember, it's Romans.
You're going the right direction.
13, 31 yeah, where they're talk about governing authorities and submission to governing authorities. And I think there's others in Timothy and whatever. So Christians in general, and then church institutions as a whole, are they good citizens? Because that's the part that it's important for us to start. And let me even say it, a lot of churches make a lot of noise during the weekend. Just noise. Let's not even go through very complex
noise,
thing.
You mean
just noise.
Environmental pollution, is that what you mean?
Yes. Okay. Just making it impossible for your neighbors to sleep. Just as that. And they really believe that that's the only way to preach the gospel, because when they talk, they say, we must preach the gospel. But that's against the law. So, going back to the idea of how do we exist in this context that we are, and the whole center of, we're supposed to be the salt of the earth, but we are the ones who are breaking the rules. What are your reflections on church as a good citizen of the country?
When you were asking that, the part that came to mind was the give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Yes.
Yeah. And when Jesus asked about the coin, and this is whose face is imprinted here.
Yeah.
And then if my teacher taught me well, there was a thing about a different kind of conversation that was happening here about a higher citizenship that is not the one of empire and of Rome. Yeah. And so if we believe that we are created in the image of God, then what is on our face, what is on our inscription is not Caesar, but it is God.
Yeah.
But we are living in Caesar's palace.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Yes. So what does that mean to live in Caesar's palace?
Yeah.
I'm tempted to say that we've become two very good citizens, that we have lost the image of God in ourselves.
Hold on.
Yes.
Like good citizens, but my point is that we're bad citizens.
Yes. We have followed the citizenry practices of the world, that we have stopped being image bearers.
Yes.
Okay. And so that is lost, because we are doing the ways of bartering and trading in the way the country is doing. We are making noise in the communities. We are the ones we are too good of citizens. Even the noise making on NEMA practices and all of that.
Yeah.
That is the way of Kenyans. So we are being good citizens. We are being good Kenyans.
We are being bad citizens.
Noise pollution.
Yes, in the sense of we are doing the Kenyan thing.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah. We are doing the Kenyan thing by following. But if we were to do the image bearer thing,
it's interesting.
It would be a very different way of doing life.
Can I press that a little further?
Okay.
I like pressing.
Yeah.
So, at one point, Jesus is accosted. This is where your taxes. Ujalipa ushuru.
Yeah.
What does he say to Peter? He says to Peter, go and catch a fish. He catches a fish inside. And then he asks a very important question. He says, to whom who pays taxes? The sons or the subjects?
Yeah.
And the answer correctly, the subjects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what does Jesus say? He says, okay, therefore, do this. Go and so the sons of the kingdom don't pay taxes. But so as not to offend them, pay your tax and mine. Right. The tax was enough for Jesus and Peter. Go pay your tax and mine. So here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Carol said it nicely. We come from a higher kingdom.
Yeah.
A higher kingdom. That my father is the landlord of the so-called owners of the land.
Yes.
So as not to offend you, because you think you're the landlord, let me adhere to your rules and regulations, even though I come from a higher power. in as fun, if you look at the history of the church history, they said, we do better. He says in Acts chapter 4, your opinion, who should we obey? Should we obey men or should we obey God? We should obey God, even if it means breaking your rules. So I feel we're not there. I feel we're not, I am agreeing with you, we're not there. We're not there. We're not in the place where we fear God enough to then say, I disagree with you, be it as it may. Do with me whatever you will, I will obey God.
So land grabbing.
Can I tell you something? And land grabbing.
Land grabbing,
yes. Let me tell you. I'm glad because the comment that I was about to say was a land grabbing
conversation. Where am I going to hide? Where am I going to hide?
Land grabbing conversation. One of the pastors that I work with, names withheld and all of that. One day,
all protocols observed.
Yes. One day told me, because we were talking about like how do you relate with your leaders, the chiefs, and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's like when bad things are happening in the community, how do you go and talk to the chief? And then he told me, Carol, there's no way I can go to this chief because I gave him 100,000 for me to get this piece of land. Yeah. So it's like.
But that's the point I'm making.
Yes. It is the point that you're making.
The leadership,
I said this at the beginning.
Of the society that's to lead
correct.
Kenya. To lead Kenya.
You started.
But then they are acting.
You started with salt and light. You started with salt and light. Yes. And I answered you correctly. And maybe I entered this thing too early. And I said, with these stories, so now listen, I'm sorry, you asked this. Let me make it a little personal. When we were registering our church, maybe 20, 25 years ago, we got there and somebody came to me and said, my boss, this was a church member, my boss your file has reached my boss. My boss says you come and see them. And I said to them, and I know I've told you this story. I think I've said this story before. If I haven't, let me say it again. And they said, and meanwhile, they said, you throw in your register, you put it in and they say, come after 3 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks became 3 months, became 6 months, became a year, whatever. And then after maybe 18, whatever months, they said, almost 2 years, I think, they said, this person said, your file has reached my boss's desk.
Yeah.
My boss is saying, come and see them. I said, go and tell your boss, siji kumwona. This is what the boss said to this person who was my church member at the time. He said, listen, tell your pastor, atakuja tu. Wale wengine wamekuja. Then I said, go and tell your boss, I'm not wale wengine. And I held my ground. And I held steady because I knew the discussion that was supposed to happen in that office.
Yeah.
And I don't want to open myself to temptation or whatever. I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. I said, okay, fine, let me be illegal. But here's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
A few months later, I got a call from my lawyer's office. Please come and collect your certificate.
It's now been
done without kuskuma, without going to see somebody. The thing about it is sometimes our impatience or our desire, we think this church property is ours. Yeah. And the truth is, it is ours. This does not belong to the Lord anymore. These days, it is my property, which the church kind of uses.
Yeah,
the church kind of uses.
Yeah.
It kind of uses, and it's mine.
It for God.
Yeah. So you guys are broaching the topic of regulation.
Can I say something about this? Just this week, I think there's a report from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Committee,
whose chair is a pastor.
Former bishop.
Yeah.
That nowadays people are being guys are offering to bribe even before the bribe has been
elicited.
Yeah. So they fundamentally, even cops, they now ukinipatia nitakata stakata. So there is
culture.
Yeah, we are not at a good place as a country, and so even this constitutional office, they will come to church on Sunday.
But isn't that, I know you keep telling me that the country is where it is, but isn't there the responsibility of the church to then sort that situation?
There absolutely is.
Or light that situation.
There absolutely is.
So it's not enough to tell me that the country is doing badly. I want to see the church doing different.
But I think the people. My view is that there is a way that we do not believe.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I said atheist Christians, atheist pastors, we really do not believe what we say we believe. Yeah? So, if we say that, I'm about to just throw myself under the bus right now. Yes?
I can feel the wheels running.
Yes. If I say I am a fearless influencer of society, but then I am very quickly influenced to offer corruption money, then there's a time there was a Sabasaba protest. Yeah?
You went there?
Yes, there was a Sabasaba protest. At the same time, there was a fearless influencers things happening. And on my Facebook, I said, the actual fearless influencers of the society today are on the streets.
Yes.
There's a time there was a prayer breakfast. And there was a prayer breakfast at State House. And then there was the first KNH Rot protest.
Yeah.
And as I was walking and joining that protest, I kept wondering, what would happen if those bishops at State House came and joined us?
You see it very clearly. You see, to you, it's very clear. This is what I was trying to say. It's very clear to you what is right and wrong.
Yes.
That the right thing to do is the right thing to do. It's not so clear to everybody else, you see. And so I want to, in fact, I'd say, I don't know how I can say this as clearly as I said, that if the salt loses its saltiness, we have no good but to be thrown on that heap and trampled on by men, which is actually what is happening.
Yeah.
And we need, and this is why I say, there needs to be an arising of a remnant. And I feel that unfortunately, here's the thing that's going to happen. The remnant is not going to come necessarily out of current leadership. I want to say. Let me just throw that out there.
But let me throw you guys into regulation, because you guys are all there. Registration of churches, the discussion with the chief and everything. So Kenya has a regulatory structure for churches. You must register a church, register societies. There have been several times when that registration has been halted or banned because the government has said
enough is enough.
We are seeing a lot of basically organized crime that's happening under the guise of registered churches. And so maybe let's reflect about that a little bit. Rwanda is pretty strict on it.
Yeah.
Pastor Pete was talking about a little earlier that a lot of the pastors and leaders of churches are actually not trained.
Yeah.
Rwanda has more requirements for you to be called that title pastor. What are your reflections on it? What can we do? From now, a regulatory standpoint, if we give you the power to regulate the church, what would you do? In 100 days or less?
In 100 days or less, I would shut down churches first.
Yeah.
The Sunday gatherings.
Yeah.
That for me, and Pete is like, hi, why would we shut down churches?
Why you?
I'm saying you because you're here.
Wow.
But I think I know I'm part of some networks where they are saying they're doing their own regulations.
Yeah, self-regulation.
Self-regulations. And I think the church has halted it so that they do self-regulation. But for sure, I think regulation is very important. I think there is, especially when people are coming to you and they need, you're holding sacred issues for them. Yeah. There needs to be like a body. There needs to be somewhere where we can run to. But also, and this is why when you have government that does not work, then you say even the government itself needs regulations. Yeah. So
don't think NCCK is on the way there. I'm just asking. I don't know.
Well, sorry.
You're totally disappointed.
I need
NCCK.
I think. Okay, I think a sober understanding about this is important. I think, yes, we need some kind of regulation that says there's a threshold that religious organizations must meet. And that threshold, somewhere between theologians, pastors, and legislators, that has to be agreed on. That somewhere that needs to happen. I think that needs to happen so that there's a threshold, a minimum threshold that I think needs to happen. But without the government getting into the daily affairs of the church, because I think that also means that's important, because then that's not the government's work. But that having been said, I want to posit something. So with those regulations in place, the place we used to say that it's those unregulated churches where there's prophets, whatever, that run the church or whatever, that's where this abuse is coming from. Are you saying that then some of our organizations where the recent abuse has come from, if we go as far as Ted Hazard in the US, we go to Eddie Long or whoever it was that was doing this thing, there was regulation. These people had the qualifications, but they were just able to game the system in a way. So I'd say that there's a fundamental, this is the thing that we don't want to say, is that we are flawed. We're fundamentally flawed, that we are sinners. And for that reason, we need a savior. And I feel that, to me, the space of being able to say that there's a community of believers that then holds others accountable, so that community, whether it's formal or informal, needs to be empowered. That's for sure. Okay. That's something that needs to happen. I said in so many words.
Yeah.
My struggle with what you're sharing, Pete, is who regulates the regulator? Yeah.
So
because
the Holy Spirit.
But we are atheists.
Yes.
Yes. So the thing
so whether we're atheists or not, he still regulates it because there is a standard.
Yes.
And that standard, Romans lays this out really clearly. Even to those who did not believe, the stars are witnessing his power and glory. Romans 1 talks about this thing. So even when we say, that's not what I believe, the atmosphere is saying this is what. So there's a culture that says this is what is right. Now let's go to Rwanda, for example, and say, what is the byproduct of this thing? Pastors, I was in Rwanda recently, and pastors struggled and said, okay, let's meet the threshold, whether it's a threshold for educational qualifications, academic qualifications, whether it was some other kind of qualifications for the building that you're in. When those standards are set, then let's adhere to them.
Yeah.
Our problem, back to this thing, is that even when the standards are set, we don't adhere. So there's a fundamental, back to this thing, I don't know. I think the regulatory must happen. I think that's something that we must say, that there's a basic threshold that we, but at the same time, then I must hold Pastor Carol accountable.
Yeah.
If I know what Carol is doing, then I say, listen, you're my friend, Lakini. These braids of yours, we must chuck them.
But then we don't want to do that because we feel that you're trampling into my space. And so, like, you're coming into my business. My business is my business.
Yeah.
And so 1
Corinthians 5:5, what does it say? It says, hand such an one over to Satan. Because somebody who's recalcitrant and unrepentant must be handed over to Satan. I think here's the other thing we're not saying.
Before you hand them over to Satan, what is the physical, like the...
There needs to be there needs to be
the
first
Satan
gate
is spiritual.
Yeah, the first gate, the second gate, the third gate.
Physical Satan.
Yeah.
Who is the physical?
The first gate, the second. So here's the thing. I feel the first gate, second gate, third gate. So already we have what the government calls the penal code. Some of the things that some of these pastors are doing are just downright illegal. I mean, you go with the penal code, this person solicited funds. This is fraud. Some of it is just outright fraud. And any lawyer worth their salt or worth the paper that they graduated in, if they graduated correctly from the whatever, I should be able to go and then defend this thing in court and say...
AIPCA Kayole was dealing with major embezzlement.
Yeah, so you should be able to say, look, this is a crime.
And even like some of my friends in, I think, Githurai, one of the Githurai Justice Centers, one of their biggest fights is that the church next door is grabbing the public land next to them.
Oh.
Or even like some of the halls. Yeah. So some of this, our witnessing is lacking.
Yeah.
Because
for sure.
we are witnessing to the wrong thing.
I'm in a very difficult space today because the reality is, I've sat as a pastor for over 20 years. I've since retired, but that doesn't absolve me of responsibility to tell my brothers, some of whom you have mentioned here today, that we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. The reality is, though, that even when there's no legal code, there is a moral and spiritual code that we have to. This is what I'm trying to aim at. That the reality is, if I cannot, and this is the truth of the matter, if I cannot obey laws that I can see, how then do I say that I'm obeying a God who I cannot see? John says it like this. He said, if you can't love your brother, if you can't love your brother who you see, how you say you love your brother, you say you love God but hate your brother, you're lying. He calls you a liar because you can't love a brother who you can't hate a brother who you see and love a God who you don't see. That's impossible. There's that law of the visible vis-a-vis. So now that you said the real Satan and the other Satan, the reality is this: if I can't keep the laws that I can see, then I'm not keeping the laws that I can't see. There's spiritual laws and principles, layers of them, some of them which are not necessarily obvious to us when we read the scriptures, but the one we see from the scriptures is enough for us to then say, brother, you're out of order. Brother, you're out of order. Whether he obeys it or not, then you say, listen, bro, you're out of order once. He says, if he disobeys, Jesus said this, then go and get somebody else. That somebody else comes, we say, hold him to the church. The church, one of the 2 or 3 times that Jesus himself referred to that thing as the called out, the ecclesia. That's what he said. And he only mentioned it 2 or 3 times. He talked about the kingdom of God more. He says, then bring them to the fellowship of believers. And then if he refuses, do what Paul was recommending. Treat him as an unbeliever, as an atheist. Say, hand him over to Satan.
So then let's talk the last topic here. This handing over to Satan is not a thing we can do. We need a thing we can actually do.
It sounds very complicated. No. It sounds complicated. It sounds complicated because we've mystified this thing. But the idea there is to expunge this person from the fellowship.
Oh, excommunication. The Catholics do. Okay, so here's
I was almost excommunicated. I was never excommunicated.
Almost.
My name is still in the Nairobi Baptist Registry. I don't know if they charged me. But
no, they can't now.
No.
Now you're a pillar of society.
Yes.
Am I?
Yeah. So politics and the pulpit, which is probably the last one we should talk about.
Yes.
I think it goes without saying that politicians are paying pastors. I think nobody can deny that. Would you deny that?
And do I need to give my number?
07.
No. I'm joking about that.
We cannot deny
it's a serious matter.
Yeah, and we cannot deny that that's happening.
Yeah.
I grew up in the church when the biggest, most common sermon was how raising a generation of leaders, and we wanted to influence the leaders. And so there was a huge effort to get political leaders to come to church. There's a huge effort. As in all my teenage years, I remember this whole, everybody was trying to say, what if they just came to church? Yeah. And then they came to church. So now they are in church and they have recognized that church is where we can be ourselves, right? And there's a lot of church washing. So knowing what we are seeing, NCCK has advised people, don't give them the pulpit. And Ndingi Mwananzeki famously never used to let even the president speak from the pulpit. He used to say you can set up a microphone outside. NCK Bishop recently also said, listen, no more sermons within the
sermon.
Within the
cathedral.
pulpit. Yeah, you can have your speeches outside. And I think the Catholics have also
they did, the Catholic
suit,
Council of Bishops.
Evangelicals have taken that space with glee, and so they're putting all the pastors on they're putting all the politicians right in the pulpit at the center as much as they can. But conceptually, you can answer this without saying hand them over to Satan. What do we do?
Hand them over. No. I want to venture something that I think may be interesting, and maybe I'll say this at the tail end. I feel, where does that put Martin Luther King Jr.? Because he had a political standpoint, but he's standing in the pulpit. So if I have a political office and I stand there, I know I've complicated that one a little bit.
He's not a good example.
No, that's not a good example, but it is an example all the same, because we must embrace the whole idea that we must influence politics. We must be that salt and light in that space.
So yes, agreed. So do they speak at the service, or do we speak at the service?
Here's that, it's a thin dance there that you're doing. Is this, quote unquote, a man of God who is coming to speak in the pulpit, or is he speaking as a politician? So we know, I think I know what you're asking.
Yeah.
I mean, the blatant question is, should we allow politicians to politicize?
Yes.
My position has always been no. Position has always been no. Because then the lines become very blurry, and this is, so when is the Lord speaking and when is the politician speaking?
Correct.
What is he speaking?
Yeah.
Now, I think that then says, if a politician just happens to be in my church and happens to be speaking the word of God, should I then say, we ni kwa sababu we ni mwanasiasa, usiongee, usizungumze tafadhali leo, keti chini? I should be able to say to him, listen, this will blur the lines. There's a conflict of interest here. Brother, whatever your name, Brother William, please sit down.
What are your thoughts? Because I want to come back to...
Yes, I agree with Pete, because I feel, and what my experience has been, is that a politician will always politic.
Yeah.
Whether he will find a way to politic. And one of the ways that they know, one, congregations ready.
Yeah.
Always. That is, they know. Kwanzaa, before Occupy Churches movement, they had a rotation.
Yeah.
So they had hit about 20 churches one weekend.
Yeah.
And so you're coming in, staying for 10 minutes, give you 22 million here, interrupt the whole flow of the service, give, and then move. So they are actually not part of this community, yeah? They're not part of this story.
Yeah.
So, of course, politicians, no, do not be anywhere near the pulpit. But there are some amazing, and unfortunately, some of these examples that I will offer will be from the States, like Senator Raphael Warnock, who was a minister, yeah, and then got elected into Senate, yeah. But for him, the message is a liberatory one. So I think sometimes I'm like, is this one a liberation one, or is this one for status quo?
Yeah.
So for me, that is my question, because also our politics are not progressive.
But to be fair, the number of pastors who have gone on to be politicians in Kenya is very low.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
the number of pastors who are business people is
one is high.
Is very high. And one of the reflections I was having as I was thinking is, why is it so easy for pastors to transition to business people and not to transition into areas of care for people? You don't see them transitioning to become...
I can tell you what. Yes, that's a very easy answer.
Yes, to become nurses. You don't see them coming to become... Because there's a way, in my answer to myself, as I asked myself, was that the skill that they have is one of a good businessman with a good tongue.
Yeah, charisma.
Yes. So the pulpit for politicians, no.
Let me throw something out here. Just, sorry, now that we're talking about that, but I think it's connected. You talk about the money, because part of the reason that politicians have license to speak at churches is because they came with a kibunda.
Yeah.
They came with a kibunda for the project. Now, if you go back up until 300 and something AD, there was no church building. There was no church building. In fact, there was no, and people debate me with this, but you check it, you'll find that there was no church building. So we weren't building buildings up until Constantinople. We didn't build the buildings, because if there's a building, if there's a temple, that means there's a priest. And if there's a priest, that means that there's a liturgy, there's all these things. But what did Jesus do? If you look at the early disciples, you look at the church fathers, they didn't do this thing that we're doing today.
Yeah.
So in a way, we're out of order, but it is what it is. So we have this thing, which I say,
Can we close churches then? Can we close the buildings?
Listen, the building, whether they close or not, we closed it for 2 years during COVID. And what happened? People said that, we'd be struck by lightning or whatever it was. But that didn't happen. The thing I'm saying is this. We are not following a biblical pattern. Because if you look at the New Testament believers, that's not what they did. They did not go back to the temple. They did not go back to temple. Now, somebody will say, but Paul came and spoke at the temple. But this was not the practice of the believers. They did not require it of the Gentile believers to be going to a temple. The point I'm making is this. So now, Mr. Politician, say Dan was the politician, so Mheshimiwa Aseda has come to build the temple. Because I have a temple, then I must furnish it and back to what I said earlier, by these earthly standards. So then I must furnish it by earthly standards. So where will we meet? We will meet. So I don't, that becomes all this gray paisley thing that we need to deal with. I feel that if our posture of redemption and atonement, just these basics about the Christian faith, are correctly in place, then we don't need this performative piety where Dan has to come to this to appear pious. He chucks 10 meter and he comes and says, Mheshimiwa Nani has given. Why doesn't he give it in secret?
Because it won't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So political too.
Yeah.
So that's my point, that we are allowing finance and money to become the political tool for ourselves to be manipulated. And now when the politicians are out of order, we lost our voice. So we can't go and say to brother whoever, listen, you're out of order, because brother whoever can come and say, but listen, I dropped 20 M at your doorstep, my guy.
And I think the other contradiction now is when your money no longer can pave your way for it.
Yeah.
So when people started saying, come and give it silently.
Yeah.
They won't come.
Yeah, when Olisapid said
yes,
it's given to the Central HQ Church, then we will send it to them.
We'll send it. So it won't matter.
Yeah.
But when you were talking about the churches, it reminded me of Solomon and the building of the temple the second time, and where one of the very interesting, and I hope I remember this well, is that when he was building the temple this other time, it was at that moment he enslaved more people than were enslaved before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we need to talk about, because we talk about the wisdom of Solomon, but we don't talk about Solomon's role in enslaving his people to build the temple. And let's draw all this character, all these
Jesus said something so important. He said, so ultimately his life is on the line.
Yeah.
And Pilate says to him, my guy, I have the power to, he says, my kingdom is not of here.
Yeah.
If my kingdom was of the earth, my subjects would fight for me. Yeah. Which is very profound. Because you see now, and I'm glad you talked about America. I think, and you're finding it in maybe Australia and England, but certainly in Kenya, where we've developed a kind of nationalist sort of religious sort of thing that then says, we need power, we need to be close to power, the president needs to be a believer, the president needs to be a whatever. This is what we've said, that the president, the prime minister.
I was reading with nonviolent atonement, where the emperor and the emperor now becomes the voice of the church.
Yeah.
And the church leader now is no longer listening to Jesus, but is listening and wanting to pass.
This is not the New Testament, though.
Yeah.
That is not the New Testament. That is not what Jesus taught.
That's how we built the church of, even my church, the Anglican church, famously, became Anglican because the king wanted to control it.
Yeah.
So, and my point then is to say, because what I said, please, I don't need you to laugh at this so much. Shut down Babylon. He says, come out of her. He says, come out of her. Because
we need an exorcism.
Yeah, no, the exorcism is when the thing is inside you. We are inside the thing.
So what's the opposite of exorcism?
Is to leave. Yes. Is to leave. And I think we have some models that are now, I'm sorry, I took so long to say this, but that, these days we want to quickly cut to the chase and not, hear out the argument. I grew up in the day when people had long debates at Taifa Hall, and you could go and listen to debate for a while. In fact, sometimes it took 2 days before we reached the conclusion. I want us to look at the model there's a model in the Old Testament of Daniel, Zion in the midst of Babylon. So Daniel is alone. They're not 7,000 others. Daniel is alone in the king's court.
But there's three other guys. Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad.
So Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, which were their names. These were so you were going to go somewhere very bad. So listen. Here's my point. When it came down to it, if you read chapter 1, it says, we're not going to eat your food.
Yeah.
It came to chapter 2, no, we're not going to, chapter 3, we're not going to bow.
Yeah.
Chapter 5, he's told, by the way, if, chapter 5 is where you're talking about the lion, I'll put you in the lion's den.
Yeah.
6, it's 5 or 6 of Daniel. The reality is Daniel stood, and you can see he stood for integrity. In fact, I like chapter 3, verse 16. It says, King, live forever, whatever it is that you say, fuata nyayo, whatever greetings they give. No, about this matter, we don't need to have a discussion.
Yeah.
The God whom we serve is able to deliver us. But even if he does not, we will not bow. So that is not law. That is not legal. That is not because there was some structure that kept me from disobeying. And there was no Satan present. The Satan was the immediate fire. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. And they were willing to be burnt. The one saying, I know that he'll deliver us, because that's what they said. But even if they were not delivered, they were willing to go to the flames. So I feel that this willingness to go to the flames is what is absent. We have, listen, and I think part of the problem is this, and I know people will fight with me. We've done so many altar calls. We go to the crusade, we say, repeat after me. Say, Lord Jesus, which is great. We do this thing. But was that man truly converted? Because that sinner's prayer, again, let's go to the New Testament. We don't have a temple in the New Testament, except in Revelations. We don't have services, church service in the New Testament. We don't have sinner's prayer. In the New Testament.
Is an invention.
Now, listen, I have no problem with the sinner's prayer. It helps people to, on 23rd January, this is what I did. That's great.
The invention of John.
There's a, let me confirm.
Whoever invented it, my point is this.
Invention of someone.
So listen.
Oh.
No, not.
Yeah. My thing, Dan, is this, is that we're doing things that are not in the Bible. Zinasaidianga kidogo, because some people need some help to get along the way. But does it produce true converts?
Yeah.
The thing about it is, and it's what Carol said earlier, we have atheists. The person came in front for the altar call, or maybe say at best agnostics.
Yes.
Because they came to the front and they said the sinner's prayer. And we said it's some pixie dust that will spray over them, this magic dust, and they'll be changed. And the truth is, we didn't say to them, a sinner must repent. And that the change happens on the inside. It happens on the inside. And that the word will bring transformation, that we must bear fruit. John said that Jesus was speaking. John said it, bear fruit in keeping with repentance.
Yeah.
So if I am repentant, and this is why we must go back and say, give this person some time to say, are you repentant? Yes. Are you repenting?
But don't say the Satan thing. Carol, have you found your job?
It's Charles Finney and D.L. Moody.
They're the ones who
originated the sinner's prayer. So a lot of these things that we hold to be sacred are things that people
invented.
Wrote.
There's nothing wrong with it. Yes. Listen, I'm not saying there's anything.
Let me finish. Yes. In the sense that the way that now we hold on to it, and because I think one of the reasons when Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me.
Yeah.
That is a different conversation, because you need to start asking, what does taking up your cross follow me? And for people who, and this is why I feel there is not a deep understanding of what being the called out ones is that we've hidden behind these platitudes and these functions that don't have a bearing, an actual bearing into how we are living in the world.
Yeah.
And so if we are told in scripture that those who love their lives will lose it, we are supposed to be the people who actually do not care about death, because we know where we are going.
Yeah.
Yet, one of the things we do, if we were told now all of us here are dying.
Yeah.
We will not want to die.
Yeah.
If you're told you are the Daniel in the den, in the lion's den,
Yeah.
we'll be like, hey, what? Tunaona nani kando? Yeah?
Who do you talk to?
Who do we
So we
talk
control
to?
this thing.
Yes. Before it is, and we will be, and on Sunday we will say, and bribing has become, I paid the cops.
God help me, because the cops didn't.
Yes, yeah, I paid the cops. So the conversation around sacrifice,
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah.
Around standing and being foolish, being seen stupid in the eyes of the world.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
We do not want to be that.
So this is my context.
We want to be the, like, everyone, but see, God would understand. Yeah. So our theology, and I think it's a thing around discipleship, we are not doing. There are some things about our faith we don't understand. We don't understand what it is to be a Christian. A Jesus follower. We don't understand what it is to be in community with people. We are told, someone asked, if this church that you're in, if for one reason or another, there was a demolition or people
was removed from the community,
yes, what would be missed of you?
Yeah.
Yeah. What would people say
if they were handed over to Satan?
Yes.
So if the Kenyan church disappeared,
yes,
what would we miss?
Yes.
Wow.
What would we miss? And that is a thing we need to ask ourselves, because I am not sure. That is not something I can answer. I think it's people around to answer that question for us. What would we miss? And I love the role of the church in communities. And that's why I work with churches, because I believe in the power of churches and for transformation.
Yeah.
And people in that. I believe that 100%, because I have seen the impact that churches have on communities. They bury people, they take care of people, there's community in there, but there's something about the institutionalization of it that loses the plot as it goes higher.
Last question for everyone. It's a yes or no question. Big church, small church?
Small church. That's not a yes, no. Let's ask it properly.
It has to be...
Yeah, small church.
Small church. Big church, small church.
No church.
But you said this community.
Yes. No, like in that sense. So,
small church.
Yes. So for me, it is...
But no, it's a yes or no question.
We'll go with small church.
Okay.
We'll go with small church.
Because it's closer to nothing.
Yes.
No, and there's a reason behind it.
You out of no church to small church.
Yes.
Okay, so we do have to end. And I want to, chapter 5, I just looked it up.
1 Corinthians 5:5.
No. Daniel, book of Daniel, chapter 5, is actually the story of Belshazzar.
Yeah.
And the writing that was on the wall.
Yes.
So, of course, we can't finish
Daniel
the conversation today.
The Daniel lines is 6.
Yes. 6. But maybe that's a good place for us to stop the conversation today, so we can pick it up another time. I do want to invite my pastor, Edward Ndachi, to come, because we mentioned him. I'd like for him to reply, and a few others who I think have really good ideas. I want to thank you so much for making time to come. And thanks so much for driving all the way from another county. Always a pleasure to see you. Maybe the...
Writing on the wall. Why is this writing? Sorry.
The writing on the wall.
So this...
Because you were saying earlier that the Kenyan church is in the...
Writing on the wall.
We have the writing.
So many.
Yeah.
We have been weighed and been found wanting.
Yes.
Is there a remedy?
Who knows?
Should we Never mind.
See you next time. Think about these things. I think the most powerful thing that has been said today by Carol is, if the Church of Kenya disappeared today, what would we miss?
Yeah, I have to think about that.